So, hey, we have some very exciting news to share with all of you. I'm Penny Stack,
I'm April Tate.
and
We
our
are
from Educate to Advocate podcast. You are probably most familiar with our voices from our podcast, and we wanted to just have a different medium where we could connect with you on a more personal level. So we are now doing video casts, which is way outside of our box.
way outside of our comfort zone.
All of our bloopers and learning curve, you'll see it all. So anyway, you want to go ahead and tell them a little bit about where you're from?
Sure. I am with Drops of Hope Consulting. It's a consulting company that works with families of special needs children. We do a lot of work in the school system, helping families set up 504s and IEPs. We work with private schools that don't have the staff resources to write those types of documents. And we just have a real heart for families and people. And that's what we do.
And that's why you're my podcast co-host, because you've got a huge heart. I'm with Dyslexia Center of Tulsa. We work with children and adults or any individual who may have difficulty with reading or with learning differences. We have a team of occupational therapists, speech therapists, teachers on board. And so April and I kind of connected to just bring together our resources and experiences to share with you.
And we're excited. We're excited for this new platform. We're super nervous, but it's going to be fun. We're excited for you to see our faces and just to be a little bit closer with us.
I'm wondering if we ticked off how many times we said we're excited, there's probably going to be a lot of ticks on the paper, like tick marks.
Probably.
Yeah.
Probably.
Okay.
They usually edit those out.
Did you know how excited we are? It's probably the nerves coming out.
I think so.
We're just at a loss for words because the old way, we could just hit delete.
We could. Or just say, hey, could you edit that out?
Yeah. Our producer just edit it out. But
He was awesome. He listened to all of them and just took care of it.
Yeah. And he just took care of it. But now not so much anymore. Like he's still on our side and helping us. But I'm not sure how that all works on the editing
But
side.
now we're here.
We are
we
here.
Can't hide.
So we have a really interesting topic today. You know, the whole vision of our podcast, Educate to Advocate, is really to share our stories or experiences we've learned just from working with the clients that we've connected with on how you can best position yourself to advocate for your own child who may have some special needs in school, whatever those are. And so part of that journey is really being able to adapt and acclimate with whatever life throws us. And this past year, I cannot believe it's been almost a year. COVID is what life threw us.
Curveball.
Yeah. When I look back, and in fact, just today when I was out driving around with my husband and we were trying to come up with a place to go to lunch, we walked into one restaurant and it was jam-packed. No one had a mask on. It was standing room only. I opened the door and I said, we aren't eating here. I can't go in. And then it took us a while to find another place. And after we got our lunch and we got it to go and we're driving, I said, wow, our life is so different. You know, last year at this time on a weekend, we would not even think about who is there or how many people are there. We would just get in the car and go do whatever we wanted to do. And now looking at our life, we stay home a lot.
Yes. Yes, we do. We never leave.
Yeah.
The Tates never leave. The Sunday outing to the studio is a hot time for me.
I know one of the questions that you brought up earlier that we wanted to ask and kind of share with our viewers, how has your life changed?
Completely and totally for us. Some different things that just stand out glaringly is that we are homeschooling our children, which was never really something that we thought we would do. That was never on our want list. And so not only are we doing that, but we are learning as we go. And I'm very thankful for the grace that my kids give me daily because we are learning together and it's not perfect and it's not always pretty. But I think it tumbles out to be really beautiful.
Well, the other day, maybe it was yesterday or the day before. I can't remember. That's the other thing that COVID has done is I don't even know what day of the week it is half the time, right? But I remember seeing on your Facebook page, you posted game night.
Oh, last night, yes.
So it was last night. So the first thing that came to my mind was, how does she have the energy? She's homeschooling all week. You know, she's not only mom, you know, doing the routine, cooking, cleaning, whatever you would normally do, no matter what the times were, but arranging your child's academic. You are parent, teacher, entertainer,
cruise director,
And then you happily Friday night at the end of the week when all you want to do is grab maybe, a bottle of wine and sit on the porch with your husband and have a date night, or you just want to crawl into bed, or maybe just flop yourself on the couch and watch a movie,
Mhm.
which is typically what I do.
Mhm.
You rally and decide, I saw popcorn, 3 different games, and I'm like, I'm going to her house. She's got it. I don't even have to plan anything. I just need to show up. So tell me, where's that energy come from? How did you get there? And why? Like, why would you do that?
Why? I can't answer that. I can't answer that. No, we spend a lot of time doing, schoolwork, and I'm not always the most popular in that realm. I'm making them do things that they don't wanna do. I'm making them do things they're uncomfortable with. I'm stretching them. I want them to learn. I want this to be a productive time, and unfortunately, that's not always the funnest times that we have.
Right.
Um, we enjoy it. It's amazing. I think we're still mulling this over, but I think we're going to continue doing it in the future. We really do enjoy it. But at the end of the day, we worked really hard. It is hard work. Both of my kids have learning differences that I have to just be creative and help them, and it takes a lot of one-on-one time, and they're tired. They're tired by the end of that time, and they wanna go, and I don't let them just go to their rooms and hang out. We go outside. It's our new goal this year is to spend 1,000 hours outside. This is a whole
Wow. So are
thing.
you really tracking it and
I'm
writing it
tracking
down?
it. Yes, I have a tracker
Wow.
that I like to fill in the little
Wow.
dots
I
and
saw your little one with rollerblades.
yes, he saved his allowance forever and decided that that was what he wanted to spend it on, and he is
Awesome.
really excited. But, so we do all the hard work, we do the chores. I force them outside, which my youngest is
I
fine with.
forced
He
them
loves it.
outside.
My oldest does not love to be outside. Although I will say, a weekend to our 1,000 hours outside challenge, if I call anything a challenge, it's on. Like, my kids love a challenge. So about a week into the challenge, he really has had a change in mindset. He is loving being outside.
Oh, that's great.
And we've learned that if we're kicking the soccer ball and talking, he talks more to us
Sure.
than if we were just like sitting on the couch or
Right.
whatever. And so game night came along. What we do is every other Friday, typically, it didn't happen this Friday, but every other weekend we have either a movie night or a game night, and we rotate. And that way the kids can pick a movie, which is, a nice, easy way to do that,
It
or we
is.
do game night, and then everybody picks a game and we play. And it's just really important to us, especially during these COVID times where because we have children with, you know, immune systems that have been compromised in the past, we're really careful with our health. And so it's really important that if we're all gonna be together, that we really make an effort to have fun and get closer and use that time wisely because really this time is a gift. And I know people say that and you hear me say that and you're probably giving me a huge eye roll and that's okay. Go ahead. I understand. I've been there. I'm there often. But it really is a gift and my husband and I are really trying hard to be intentional and to take advantage of that time because I mean, this time, what, a year ago, we were running to soccer practices and baseball practices
Absolutely.
and school parties and, just on the run constantly. And now we like cook dinner
You know
together.
your
And
children.
yes, yes, we've really, I think all four, my whole family has gotten really close. It hasn't all been roses, but there is some upside for sure.
When my daughter's now in college,
Hmm.
right? And
Yes.
so I've enjoyed that empty nest. I've enjoyed sleeping in and not having to get up at the crack of dawn to take her to school. So
Hmm.
there are some things I've really enjoyed, but it's interesting. Our relationship has changed. It's evolving. She's becoming more of this independent. I'm seeing her maybe more as her own person and less as my child that I need to care for. Does that make
It
sense?
does.
But the interesting thing about it is, as a parent, I think you always second guess. Am I doing a good job? Am I spending enough time? And I look back on all the time I spent, pursuing my own college goals while she was still growing up or working an hour from home and doing all that commuting. And I always was worried, am I spending enough time with her? And then I look at her now and I just sit back and I'm like, whose kid are you? Like, she's so impressive. I'm like, this is not like I love her and I know she's my kid, but I would have never anticipated looking back that she would have ever turned out so amazing. Like
She's
like
amazing.
I'm impressed And I think someone else did that for her. Does that make sense? Like I look at her and I'm like, oh my
no.
gosh, she's amazing. But the point being is now the time that we spend together is just so much richer
Yes.
because we can't go anywhere
Right.
and we can't do anything. And now her time's even more limited because she's not home. That it's resonated more with me than ever before. And people say this all the time, but I didn't get it until she went to college. And so I'm going to say it. And people's like, yeah. And again, right? You can't understand a lived experience until you've lived it, right? Like
Mhm.
everyone tells you what it's like to have a child and be pregnant, and you're like, yeah, and then you're pregnant, you're like, whoa, dude, right?
This is not what I thought.
Exactly. Same thing here. And that is you will never regret investing time in your child. You don't even have to get it right. You just need to physically be present. And I remember when she was like a junior and a senior in high school, especially her summer between her senior year in college, because COVID was, no one knew
Yes.
what was going on, right? And it was interesting because you could see the transition and just physically being present in the house with no agenda, but physically being there, not running all over the place and saying, we've got to go, we have
Mhm.
this place to be, opened up an opportunity, just like you said with your little one when they were rollerblading, they would talk to you, of conversation,
Yeah.
right? I felt like what COVID has shown me is that I almost needed to be as present for my child in those later years, that transition in college, as I was when I was sending her off to kindergarten.
Yes.
It's a different type of parenting. I don't need to tell her, look both ways before you cross the street, which by the way, I still do when she rolls her eyes like, Mom, I got this, right? But it's more of I'm the safe place to land.
Mhm.
I can no longer raise you in that way anymore of telling you right from wrong. Now it's me being that soft place to land. So when things don't go well, I'm that sounding board,
Right.
that judgment-free sounding board of how do we get back up and resolve it. So you and I are kind of on the different ends of the spectrum, but I feel that togetherness and that time
Mhm.
is the same. And looking back, I realize you will never regret a minute of it. So what I'm saying is, good job, mom,
Thank
right?
you.
And even though at the end of the week, all you wanna do is slip into a hot tub, with bubbles,
Yes.
and you rally to make a joyful, mindful moment with your children, they will remember that. They will
I hope
not
so.
remember that they didn't get the newfangled technology that's out there, right? Kids are always like, "I want this, I want that." They will remember the time that you spent with them more than anything.
That's my hope.
Yeah.
That is my hope.
Yeah, they totally will. It's a
And really,
worthwhile investment.
we're really working, since you say that, about our communication. It's always been my fear that my kids wouldn't be comfortable coming to me to tell me anything, and I'm starting to see. I mean, it's scary to me. Like, I wanna know. I wanna know it
Yeah.
all. But we're starting to see our little ones coming to us and saying, "Hey, can we have a meeting?" And so you go in the bedroom and you shut the
Sure.
door and you're like, "Oh dear, what is this about?" But they sit down and they tell you their feeling, or they tell you what they're worried about, or they tell you that they lost a Switch game. You don't have this pain in your house. So our children have the Nintendo Switch. This is not a plug. We are not being paid.
Little disclaimer.
Yes, and they have these games, and these games are literally this big by this big. They are tiny. They're like $80 a piece,
Wow.
and I can lose them on my kitchen counter.
Nice.
They blend with a granite, like, you can't see them at all, but they're $80, so when they lose them, we're like, "No, you've gotta find it," and, my oldest came to me yesterday and was like, "Mom, I need a closed-door meeting," and I was like, "Oh, gosh." So we go in, and I close the door, and I really thought he was going to tell me about his new business idea, because that was the closed-door meeting a week ago. But he wanted to confess that he had lost one of the games, and I was just like, "Okay," I listened and I was like, "Well, I'm sorry. I'm so glad you came and talked to me about it." And
Absolutely.
it was really on my heart to just play it cool and love on him and say, "Well, here's our action plan. Why don't you go upstairs and look? And
Right.
then if you can't find it, come down and tell me and we'll do something else." Well, it turns out his little brother put it in the carrying case in the very back, and we were able to find it very
Nice.
quickly. But it was so reassuring, and I don't know that we would have had that had we not had this last year of really working on everybody. Everybody has their moments. I mean, it's COVID. We're together all the time. people fall apart. People get
Sometimes it's
mad
not
for no
pretty.
reason. No. And we have just really been graceful throughout this year. And I think seeing that grace and be a part of that grace for our kids has kind of opened up that ability to be like, oh, I'm going to tell her this and she's not going to lose her mind.
Yeah, well, let me tell you when that's gonna backfire on you. Like, great plan, and in all seriousness, we did the same thing, right? And I've shared with you some of those stories that my daughter and I have talked about, which probably is not for the public airway, but we are open about everything, right? And the flaw and where that has bit me in the butt is she'll tell me what's going on in the sorority, or she'll tell me,
Things you
you
don't want to know.
know, things that go on at 3 in the morning. And she's always done this, right? She's always told on herself, if you will. I've never had to worry about her because eventually she'd tell me.
She's going to listen
But
to this.
now what I'm having to say is, sweetie, there are some things you don't need to tell me, and I don't need to know until you're like 30 or later. So stop
we can
talking.
laugh.
And then she'll keep telling me. I'm like, no,
La, la,
I
la.
don't need to know. And it's absolutely hysterical. But with all that said, I am so grateful that we have that relationship and that she can share her biggest fears with me. And, when there's something heartbreaking, we can talk about that, or a struggle, or, I know the right thing to do, but I'm going to have this meltdown anyway.
Mhm.
And that's okay, right? Because we all do it. And when I think about, advocating for our children, the first thing that always comes to mind is our children are these beings over here, but we're going to go over here to everybody who has authority and
Mhm.
discuss our child. When what is a big part of that is having that open communication with our child, and having these conversations with our child is advocating for them as well, because we need to know what's going on at school and what's going on in their other experiences. And if we have that open relationship, they'll come to us and we can have that back and forth conversation to where we can empower them to advocate for themselves as well.
Yes.
And so there's so much to advocating, and it's very multidimensional for sure.
Well, I have 2 comments real quick. I'm going to interrupt you. The first, good job, Mom. Penny, you created an open relationship with your child, and you weren't in lockdown with her for a
Yeah.
year.
Sometimes I'm not sure it was a good plan.
It was a great plan. I am proud of you. That is, I mean, as a parent, that's what you want more than
It is.
anything.
It is.
And you have managed that, and you're on the back end of this
Scary
continuum,
journey.
but you've done it, and she is an incredible girl. I mean, every time I see her, I just want to smile. Like, I'm a smiley person anyway, but she makes me kind of bubbly. Like,
Well, I feel bad for her
she's
because
precious.
she's coming up a lot in this podcast. When she listens to it, she's going to like
I
turn
know.
8 shades of red. But she's got the cutest little freckles and the
She
cutest little
does.
cheeks, and you just want to like kiss them.
And she's just so happy.
Yeah, there's that. And you like every day in our house, with whether she's there or not, and I think it's just the environment of our home, we do not miss a day without laughing so hard that our stomach hurts. It never used to be like that, but it has been for years now. And and I think some of us try to one up the other to see if we can make him laugh, and like, I can't share what goes on. I can just say that is all part of having that relationship,
I love it.
is not taking things too seriously.
Yes, I love it. The other thing I was going to mention, you were talking about advocating for our children, and
Sure.
all of these big conversations happening over here. I think it's really important at an appropriate place and time that our children become part of that conversation.
Absolutely. There have been only a couple of parents. I've offered this to a lot of parents, but it's only been a couple of parents where they have asked me, how do I have this conversation with my child? Or can we meet with them? Or I've had parents during my first conference have their children there. And I'm like, okay, yes, I want your child involved, but this first conference, this is the first time you'll be hearing things as well, right? So let's have
Give
this
you
just
the
with the adults.
opportunity to digest this.
Process, ask real open questions, and then let's have a plan and bring in, the child. Because I think no matter what's going on in life, if your child is vested and has input in the decision making at the level that they can, you're going to see a happier child,
Mhm.
a more engaged child, a more successful child for sure.
Adjusted child.
Adjusted,
Yeah, and
yes.
and I mean, a caveat on that, I think it's really important to note that, you know, when all of this is new, it's really important for the parent to take this in and to come to terms with it and have an honest conversation with the child before they're put in those situations.
Yes.
You don't wanna bring
Yes.
your kid into an IEP meeting when he or she knows nothing is
Right.
going
Right.
on and be like, "Here we are." That's
Right.
not a good plan. That's not a
No.
good plan, but it's important that they're a part of that. It's important that they understand what they're going through and that, their learning differences are okay. It's just a different frame. That's what I tell my parents.
It is.
This diagnosis is not scary. It's just a different frame of life.
It's interesting. I have this one IEP meeting that really stands out. And so it was with a senior in high school, and it was her first time asking for an IEP. So think
Oh.
about that, right? All these years, this was a student that was an AB student, people pleaser,
Mhm.
teachers loved her. So never on anybody's radar, but she would spend 5, 6 hours a night, every night on
Mhm.
homework, crying, and I cannot remember why the parents sought me out at that time in her life. I can't remember the reason, but really sweet girl, great family, and they asked me to go to the IEP meeting. At that time, I was going to all my clients' IEP meetings, and, we had her come. She was a senior in high school, totally appropriate. We didn't do any pregame.
Mhm.
Right? And I wish I would have. It went well for her, but still, in hindsight, pregame would have been a good
Really
plan
good
and
plan.
always is a good plan. But really interesting, the meeting when it was going on, everyone was talking around her like she wasn't there,
Oh, no.
right? And there was a lot of, we can't do this because it's not the policy or it doesn't fit. And this kept going on and on. And I think something just clicked in me, and for all the children who have not been acknowledged, for myself who's never been acknowledged growing up, I just at that moment, it just came out unfiltered,
Mhm.
right? Scary moment, not good. But in hindsight, I'm so glad I did it. And I remember sharing and saying, I understand we can't give these certain accommodations because she didn't fit the criteria. Great grades, standardized testing
Always.
was good,
What's the
right?
deal with
I don't
grades?
understand.
I don't
And I said, and I get that, and I totally respect that.
Sure.
I said, but she is physically here. I said her name, so and so is physically here. And although we can't give the accommodations that are being requested, I think what we can do is give empathy
And have a
and have a
conversation.
conversation. And what I really wish I would have heard from you is this.
Mhm. And that
Wow.
changed her life.
Well, this is what I wanted to hear was, wow, I see how hard you work. I can tell it is a struggle for you to get good grades. We
Mhm.
never knew that. And I'm sorry that it's hard for you.
Mhm.
And, just that empathetic response. And I was actually very angry. I think, like I said, all that just bottled up inside from
Sure, it
all the
was your
children I've worked with before,
experience.
my
Yeah.
experience, and it all happened so fast that after I spoke, there wasn't a sound in the room.
Mm.
And I realized what I had done, and I felt bad because the parents had no idea this was coming, right? And I'm their guest, and I'm thinking, I'm gonna walk out, and they still have to deal with the school, like, I felt like I dropped the A-bomb, right? And it was really interesting because as soon as the meeting was over, I profusely apologized to the parents because I felt so bad. I felt like I was out of line. It was not professional. All these horrible things that you think when you're the consultant going in. The funny thing was, dad's like, "Oh, everything's great. Thanks for coming." And I'm like, "Oh, this really went bad." Right. But funny thing was, parents called me a few days later and they said, "We are so thankful that you said what you said because," and then they said their daughter's name, "for the first time saw what it was like to advocate, and you
For
taught
herself,
her
yes.
how to have a voice." And he said, "For that, we thank you."
That changed her life.
It changed it all. I'm like getting chills.
I am too.
And I think that's it. It's okay to not agree.
Mhm.
It's okay not to get what you're asking for,
Mhm.
but we really need to meet people where they are and acknowledge who they are as a person, right?
Sure.
For sure. And so I feel like I'm coming full circle. One of the topics we wanted to discuss was just getting to know each other a little bit, right?
Mhm.
And for me, it's just, um, life shouldn't be a struggle. Life should not be hard. I mean, yes, it's hard. I'm
There are
not
hard
saying
things.
everything
We
should
have
be
hard
given to
things.
you, but every day you shouldn't have to fight
Right.
for being accepted for who you are.
Mhm.
And to be able to genuinely understand that people are different. And I'm not saying cater, give a ribbon because they showed up for the day. I'm
Sure.
not saying just give them the trophy,
Exception.
but
Yeah,
there
to
are
accept
there are
who they are.
differences, and to give everybody grace.
Mhm.
And we talked about how has COVID affected your life, and I think that's one of the big things I've learned is how to extend more grace.
Absolutely.
Because I think in the past I had high expectations, things will be like this, and now I've realized, you know what? Nobody can keep that pace anymore. No
Right.
one.
And we shouldn't.
And we shouldn't.
We
We didn't shouldn't have had to do it before,
Mhm.
and now it's almost impossible.
Right.
So how do we still move forward? And the only way we can move forward is by extending grace.
Absolutely. I love that. I totally agree. That gave me all the feels.
I know. I see. We have had a pretty emotional day today, and
We have.
I know the listeners can't see, but I can see the tears like just welling up in your eyes.
Yeah.
It's been a pretty powerful conversation for sure.
Yes. Yes. And I love that. I just think this world would be such a different place across the board if we could just give a little bit of grace. And you're right. This year has been just the year of learning to do that. We're all cooped up in one household and we have to live together. We have to grow together. We have to school together. We have to have fun together. And you just can't do that if you can't just give a little grace.
Give grace. I know. And, just kind of coming full circle, things that kind of really stood out from this whole conversation we've had. I realized how nervous we were at the beginning,
Mhm.
and I'm not nervous anymore. Like
No.
our conversations always relax me. But things that have kind of been my takeaway have been being in the moment, giving grace, being in the moment. And in the end, it's really about relationships because when I think about how busy I was working for others, whatever that meant, whether it was at the clinic or at a job or whatever, when COVID hit, I was with my family.
Mhm.
What kind of relationship had I developed with my family to survive quarantine with my very own family?
Yeah.
And so to me, it comes down to relationships, giving grace, slowing down, and being okay with saying no to taking on too much. And if quarantine ended today, I would want to hope that I could keep those things going.
Me too, friend. Me too. I agree. A big takeaway from me was, extending the grace, the relationships. I think about the time differences that we have now. Our priorities have all shifted. My husband and our marriage has always been a very high priority for us, and we used to go to date night twice a month. And something we've done over this time is we do at-home date nights where we fire up the fire pit on the back porch.
Yeah, I've seen your at-home date nights on social media, and I just want to be there. They
We
look
have fun.
amazing.
We have fun. But my favorite part is that I always look up and see two little boys in the windows right above the patio furniture watching us and seeing, our relationship grow closer and knowing that they're coming from so much love. And it's very meaningful to me.
Well, you're being such a great role model.
Well,
They
thank
will
you.
learn how to treat their wife.
That's our goal. That's our
Right,
hope.
right, because they see how your husband treats you and makes time for you, intentional time for you. That's huge.
It is. And so this whole year, it's been up and it's been down and it's been easy and it's been hard. But at the end of the day, I'm so thankful for this time. I'm so thankful for those that love me and that give me grace.
Taking care of you and taking care of your relationships in turn takes care of your children.
Yes.
We don't have to devote 100% of our time to our children. They actually will be better for it if we don't.
Yeah. Yep.
It's okay
Great.
that they may not know what to do and they have to sit and figure it out for a little bit, right?
Oh, for sure.
Sure.
We need to be bored a little bit.
Exactly. So we really hope you've enjoyed our first video cast. We would love to hear your suggestions, questions, thoughts. Please email us at educatetoadvocate@gmail.com.
You can find our podcast on Apple, Spotify, anywhere you can find podcasts. And look for our video casts on YouTube.
That's right. That's new too.
Yes, it's new.
All right. Well, cheers.
Cheers.
Here's to a new year.
Yes, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.